Mr. Gardner. Ms. Gardner.
When I married into the Gardner family, I won the lottery. Not only did I get an amazing husband, but also a new set of parents, my in-laws, Rick and Haya Gardner. Imagine having in-laws who are so supportive, loving, and accepting, open to everyone. If I ever have anything to ask of them, the answer is always yes. I was not born or raised Jewish, and I haven't converted. I'm not Jewish. But I have been so touched by how welcoming this family and the Jewish community is, open to sharing holidays, history, culture, and ideas. And these things have become part of the fabric of our lives. Joining the Run for Our Lives walks in Boulder was a way to show our Israeli family we won't forget about the hostages and the difficult times they are all facing. For Ori and I, it was also a way to show Rick and Haya that we care about a cause that is so important to them, to show up for this very worthy cause in a peaceful way that hopes to raise awareness. On June 1st, 2025, our Run for Their Lives group was smaller than usual. Many were out of town. It was a truly lovely Boulder afternoon, perfect weather, the sky, the grass, and the flowers and the banners on the mall were Technicolor bright. The beauty and community of the Pearl Street Mall was on full display. For me, when the attack happened, it was like in the movies. Everything went slow motion. Sound got muffled. I completely lost track of where everyone was, except me and my own body. When I remember what I remember and what I see in videos doesn't jibe. I can see why memory is sometimes unreliable. Our brains protect us from reality. Before the attack, I only knew a few of the other walkers, mostly because Haya talks to everyone, makes introductions and starts conversations. She is a true connector. Getting to know the other survivors after the attack has been a blessing. I see their faces in the videos, people I know pretty well now, but I didn't know at all that day. When I met them after the attack, many weren't even familiar to me, these dear people that I cherish so much now. In getting to know them, I see how differently this event has impacted each of them. I'm so lucky, my family, are so lucky to be where we are in our lives. But many in our group were dealing with their own trauma that preceded the event, and I see the pain amplified in their eyes, in their demeanor. I see the healing happening so slowly that I'm not sure it's progressing at all. I hear that after this experience, I should learn to be more aware of my surroundings, more suspicious of everything. I've attended safety awareness trainings, watched videos about situational awareness, and I've heard my dear, sweet father-in-law, Rick, say that he should have known. He should have been more attentive and suspicious. It pains me so much to think he carries any guilt or sense of responsibility for any of this. That's no way to live, suspicious and on high alert, living in fear. It's what terrorism is about. It wins when you lose your freedom to your fear, and it doesn't have to injure or kill to win. So I'm refusing to live in fear. My family, 4 of whom were there that day in that small group of less than 30, was so fortunate to sustain no physical injuries. We feel blessed that this awful event brought so many cherished people into our orbits. We know that we are recovering from this more quickly and more easily than so many in our group, but also we are incredibly, statistically lucky that not one of the 4 of us was injured or killed, and how awful that so many had to experience that, and how awful to feel fortunate when someone else is suffering. While we were on Pearl Street Mall on June 1st, my only daughter, Rick and Haya's oldest granddaughter, was at a birthday party. I'm thankful every day that the defendant was, for all the harm he wrought, so inept In a year of planning in a place where we somehow think that just about anyone has a right to have a gun, where loopholes to obtaining a gun are a mile wide, he couldn't figure out how to acquire one. Because if he had, I have no doubt that the bottom would have fallen out of my daughter's life that day. I literally don't know where she would have slept that night, or who would have known where to find her to deliver the news that every adult in her life is gone. Imagining the weeks and months that would follow for her are just too painful. For each of the four of us, our in case of emergency contact and our secondary contact was there that day. Any of the four of us would protect her with our lives. But what if she lost all four of us? If she was eating birthday cake far away from the danger? And if even one of us had been injured or killed, it would have been totally different. And I know we'd all be suffering in a much bigger way. So maybe this isn't a very good impact statement. We didn't suffer any physical injury. We didn't have any financial loss. We're each dealing with the emotional impact together. Our gratitude amplified for our family and the community we've gained. Individually, we are each dealing in our own way. But the harm this man wreaked on our group is enormous. His intent to do so much more damage. For those he did injure and kill, the impact fans out to their loved ones and their own community. And he has shattered the lives of his own family, this selfish, foolish, wicked man. If he'd been successful, it's my daughter, the most precious person in my world, who would have borne the most impact in our family. And for that, I am tremblingly, breathlessly furious. His penalty should account for his intent. I'm grateful to the court for this opportunity to speak. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Ori Gartner, and I was there on June 1st. The defendant's actions on June 1st, 2025, have caused great pain, both personally and in our community. For me, the mirage of Boulder being a haven from the troubles of the world has been broken. I will never forget the immense heat from the flames of the molotov cocktail on my back. When I'm alone and close my eyes, I can vividly see Karen's body in flames as I bend over, fruitlessly trying to stamp them out. And just as I think they are, they somehow rekindle. Each time I pass a gas station, that stench of gasoline is a reminder of the singed nose hairs and the burned flesh from that day. Pearl Street, one of the most joyous places on earth, with its shops, its restaurants, children playing in the fountain, and buskers making people laugh, is now a place where I struggle to hold back tears. Even when I'm not on Pearl Street, just simply being in public among strangers, which should be the most natural human thing we can do, is difficult. I want to trust people. I want to assume that humankind is good by its nature, and I want to assume positive intent in all. Yet I now doubt myself at times and look around questioning if someone is out there contemplating hurting me, or worse, someone I love, simply because of who I am. No one should have a feeling of fear of being in public, yet I now do. Perhaps most of all, I now have and carry with me a deep sadness inside, ever since the defendant's actions on Sunday, June 1st. A sadness for Karen and her family, a sadness for all those hurt that day, a sadness for our community, and a sadness for the defendant's wife and children. This sadness hurts. It aches every day. I ask why, for what? I live without an answer. May Karen's memory be a blessing. And thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to share.
Thank you. Your Honor, as Mr. Gartner and Ms. Gartner mentioned, they had other family members there that day. They're not named victims in the case because of where they were positioned when things happened, But as the court is aware, what the defendant did that day traumatized and harmed so many people, including their family members, including Rick Gartner, who's here in court today. And that trauma is something he has to carry with him for the rest of his life. And in a little while, I'll be showing you a photo of the group that was taken right before the attack by the defendant began. Rick was the person taking that photograph. And he's here today, not only in support of the victims, but really as a victim himself as well. People like him, people like Gary Kornfeld, others who aren't named victims, live with the trauma and the burden that the defendant inflicted upon the named victims and the entire Jewish community that day. The next named victim who would like to address the court is Jean Unger. She's a victim of attempted murder in the second degree and attempted first degree assault. And with the court's permission, I'll call Jean Unger up now.
Ms. Unger, thank you.
My name is Jean Unger, and I was present during the June 1st attack on our group Run for Their Lives in front of the courthouse on Pearl Street in Boulder. Why was I there? Because I walked with the group every Sunday for over 2.5 years while hostages remained in Gaza, stolen from their homes in Israel on October 7th, 2023, by Hamas and other Gazans who participated in the atrocities of that day. Run for Their Lives provided a place where those who were suffering from the events of October 7th could gather in community and walk in solidarity with the hostages and their families, and yes, for some of us, in support of Israel, our beloved homeland. It was a priority, and I made sure no matter what was going on or where I was, I walked. I have been horrified by the world's reaction since October 7th, and Boulder was no exception. This town that many of us moved to long ago for its liberal values, tolerance, and its welcoming, peaceful character has changed. Many said, how could this happen here? But I didn't ask that question. I knew it could happen here. Every week, we walked in the face of hateful, unwarranted, and accusatory insults, piercing us like daggers as we called out the hostages' names for those on Pearl Street to hear. I so clearly remember a pretty young woman in a flowy mini dress running towards us and screaming, "You're all old and ugly, baby killers, free Palestine," as though she had all the freedom and power in the world to denigrate us and be cruel. Her audacity and arrogance struck me and remained just one of the countless images that sticks in my mind from our walks. Nothing about our walks was contentious, or nothing should have been, but the fact that we have connections and a love for the nation of Israel is enough to provoke anger, vitriol, and finally, violence of the worst kind. Before each walk, people new to the group were asked to introduce themselves. That's when I saw Karen Diamond for the first time. I called out, asking her to tell us her name. She seemed a bit shy about sharing, and I spent the entire walk preoccupied with remorse for putting her on the spot and planning to apologize to her. But alas, I never got the opportunity, because when the molotov cocktails landed, it was Karen, the first-time participant in Run for Their Lives, who bore the worst brunt of the flames. So the next time I saw Karen, she was lying on the ground, engulfed in flames, with people surrounding her and doing everything in their power to extinguish the flames and help. That image is embedded in all of our brains forever. I haven't forgotten the events of that day. I remember clearly the delay I experienced in reacting to what had just happened, watching people fall on the ground with flames leaping up their legs, feeling the heat on my ankles, smelling the smoke, and finally jumping into action, running across the street to find water. I browsed the storefronts on Pearl Street and debated who would give me water, who didn't hate us, and ran into Falafel King. I knew we had support from the Israeli owner there, and I am grateful. His staff helped get their heavy container of drinking water to the spot where Karen lay. Then I sat helplessly for what seemed like an eternity until the various forms of help that we so desperately needed arrived. The terrorist, shirtless, you've seen the images, was still hysterically yelling at us and another man who I assumed was a friend of his. I was a bit hysterical myself, wondering why was this person still freely here, threatening us? Where were the police? Where was the fire department? Where were the paramedics? Bystanders watched while heroic members of our group put the flames out. Eventually, I perched on the ground with Barbara, whose feet and ankles had been burned, stroked her head, and tried to soothe her while we waited. Her daughter on the ground across from us, also burned. When she was escorted to the ambulance, I walked away from the scene with others who were asked to wait and provide a statement to the police, which I never did because it seemed more urgent to get home, where my husband was waiting for me, concerned because I had left my phone in the car for the first time ever and hadn't been in touch. I attempted to walk back to my car, but the streets were closed off. So when I ran into my close friend Ed, I stood on the street with him, both of us not knowing what to say or do next as people passed by as though it was a normal Sunday in June. Did this day traumatize me? Perhaps, but for me, the trauma has been cumulative since experiencing the world's wrath and anger towards Jews, Zionists, and Israel after the events of October 7th. The betrayal by people who I thought shared my life view and my morals is palpable. The immediate reaction before any strikes were made in Gaza, supporting the atrocities and dancing in the streets in the name of Free Palestine at a time when I fully expected the masses to be with us, that has traumatized me. And June 1st exacerbated that. An outpouring of support on June 8th at the Boulder Jewish Festival ended, and since then I have witnessed more outrage and concern for the perpetrator's detained family than I have for the victims of this heinous act. In the misconstrued name of justice, the masses seem to be more concerned with who they deem as victims than they are with the actual victims, like the widespread support for terrorists over the murdered, mutilated, and raped victims of the October 7th atrocities. The trauma for me manifests as anger and a loss of trust. I no longer assume my neighbor is my friend. I no longer take my safety for granted. And I no longer display my Judaism without the understanding that I may get a violent reaction from people whose paths I cross while wearing my Star of David proudly, because I am proud. I am so damn proud of my people and those of us who walked every week in the face of animosity and cruelty and a level of arrogance and faulty righteousness that I have yet to see in my lifetime. This man is just one tiny speck of a man who wants to see Jews killed and Israel destroyed. Him ending up in Boulder was not shocking or unexpected to me. It was a wake-up call to us that this is happening everywhere, and no one is immune. We have paid a huge price, the biggest price, for being proudly who we are. Thank you for this opportunity to express myself.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, Police Chief Stephen Redfern of the Boulder Police Department has asked for an opportunity to just briefly address the court.
Chief Redfern.
Good morning, Chief Judge. My name is Stephen Redfern, and I serve as the police chief here in the city of Boulder. I'd like to share a few thoughts with the court today about the large impact that this defendant's actions on June 1st had on everyone involved, and request that you impose the maximum sentence possible for each count. Prior to June 1st, I had responded and been involved in 3 mass shootings in my career, and they have all left trauma that will never heal. Sadly, as we know, in Boulder, no community is immune from mass shootings, and we train for and are not surprised when they occur. What I can tell you is that no training can prepare any first responder for seeing the kind of trauma and injuries that this person caused on June 1st. Our officers, firefighters, and medical personnel rushed to the scene that day not knowing what they would encounter, and they did exactly as they were trained, bringing order to chaos, aiding the injured, and swiftly arresting the coward that perpetrated this act. Some of them are in attendance with me today. While clearly the priority in any case like this are the victims, their families, and those whom we lost, but I'm here today to share the far-reaching impact that this defendant's actions caused that extended far beyond the people that this man specifically targeted. It's been said about first responders that they signed up for this when talking about the impact that cases like this have. But as someone who's done this job for a long time, I can tell you that nothing can prepare any of us for seeing what our folks saw that day. In no world does anyone sign up to see women, innocent people set on fire and burned. The actions of this guy affected each one of us that responded that day deeply. And like the victims and their families, we will all have to live with the memories of this day for the rest of our lives. In a community that saw 2 mass violence attacks in just 4 years, I cannot understate just how much the intentional actions of this guy upon our beautiful community had on everyone. We continue to have to provide additional staffing for events and have snipers and SWAT officers present just so people can celebrate, worship, and gather in public places. It shouldn't be like this. But because of people like him, it's our sad reality. Additionally, in a time of crisis like that day in June, money is the least of our concern. But I also can share with you that the actions of this defendant had a devastating effect on budget and resources. We will never complain about working overtime to keep this community safe, and we will always find ways to do what we need to do to keep them safe. But it's hard not to be angry when I think about the other programs and opportunities in our city that suffered because of the money and resources that had to be redirected solely because of him. I've been involved in nearly every type of case throughout my almost 30 years in this profession, and there have been times when I supported leniency for a defendant based upon the circumstances of a case. Your Honor, this is not that case, and he is not that defendant. I've seen very few defendants that deserve the harshest of penalties as much as he does. While we sadly couldn't prevent his hate-fueled actions that day, a message can be sent today, Your Honor. I urge you to send a strong message. Not only a message to him that he has demonstrated he should never be a free man again, but a message to anyone else that might think they can come to our community and cause harm, that they won't win. We will not only come together and persevere over hate, but we will hold those who harm others accountable and ensure that they can never harm another soul. Your Honor, please give this defendant the maximum sentence for each count. Thank you for allowing me to address the court.
Thank you, Chief.